Marthad and his father were both actually Meccan, and they became Muslim together. And Marthad was a handsome, well-built young man. And he was someone who immediately dedicates himself to the Prophet ﷺ. He was a Halif of Hamza radiallahu ta'ala anhu in Mecca, an ally of Hamza bin Abdul Muttalib in Mecca. And in Medina, he became the brother of Al-Aws ibn Samit radiallahu ta'ala anhu, the great Ansari, the brother of Ubadat ibn Samit radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Now, he has a very specific role in the seerah, and that is that he is the man that the Prophet ﷺ used to send on missions from Medina to rescue the poor prisoners in Mecca. So he's Meccan, but he's strong, he's smart, he knows Mecca inside out. And the Prophet ﷺ gives him this task where he will send him to Medina on multiple missions, send him from Medina on multiple missions. He'll basically park his camel in a place called Al-Idkhir, or his horse, or whatever it is that he was using to transport the prisoners. He goes deep into Mecca, rescues someone, brings them back, and then takes them back to Medina. Talk about a noble man. Talk about the courage that he has to have to be able to do that. So this hadith is in At-Tirmidhi, the story of his. And it's narrated that كان رجلا يحمل الأسرى من مكة حتى يأتي بهم المدينة. That Amr ibn Shu'ayb radiyallahu ta'ala anhu narrates from his father, from his grandfather, that there was a man from Mecca that used to go to Mecca from Medina and rescue the prisoners on behalf of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And on one of these trips, كانت امرأة بغي بمكة يقال لها عناق. There was a woman that didn't have the best reputation in terms of what she would do. So she was an adulteress. Basically, she was someone who was known in Mecca for a very particular sin, the sin of zina. But then the hadith has a twist to it. وَكَانَتْ صَدِيقَةً لَهُ. She was, prior to the days of Islam, his friend. And his friend clearly has different connotations here. He knew her well in the days of Jahiliyyah, in the days of ignorance before he became Muslim. He used to have a relationship with her, and he hadn't spoken to her since he became Muslim. And Marthad is in Mecca on one of these missions from the Prophet ﷺ, and he narrates the story in first person. It's an authentic hadith. He says, so I came to the walls of Mecca on a moonlit night. So there was more light in this particular night from the moon than other nights. And he said that I found myself in the situation, فَأَبْصَرَتْ سَوَادَ ظِلِّي. She noticed me by my shadow. Meaning, she knew him so well that just his silhouette alone was enough to let her know that that was Marthad. So Anaq called out to him and said, Marthad, Marthad. She called out multiple times. And he's on a mission here, right? If he gets compromised here, he's dead. So Marthad comes up to her and he says, yes, it's Marthad. And Anaq says, Ya marhaba wa ahla, halumma fabit indana al-layla. Welcome back to Mecca, O Marthad. Come spend the night with me. He has a snap judgment to make here. There isn't just zina, but this is the test of Yusuf alayhi salam as well. It's zina or potential death. It's adultery or death. He has a million excuses that he could make right now for himself. And he actually does have an attachment to her from before. So the attachment is there, the threat is there, and if he does not respond to her, then what could she do? She could then really compromise his security. But he responds to her, and he says, Ya Anaq, harram Allah zina. Anaq, listen, I'm a Muslim now. I don't do that anymore. And Allah has made zina haram. Allah has made adultery haram. So what does she do? Marthad says that she says, bi'a'la sawt. She screams out, Ya ahl al-khiyam. O people of the tents, the man who's been stealing your prisoners is here. So his security immediately becomes compromised. Marthad says, so I immediately ran away. And he said, 8 people pursued me. And he said, until I found, and it was nighttime, until I found a cave, and I got into this cave. And he said, technically speaking, they found me. Now, subhanAllah, the hadith is very explicit. قَالَ حَتَّى قَامُوا عَلَى رَأْسِي فَبَالُوا فَطَلَّ بَوْلُهُمْ عَلَى رَأْسِي. He says that until they were right above me, and when one of them urinated, the urine hit my head. I was that close. You can imagine the fear that he has. I'm dead. I'm dead. They're right there. But he says, miraculously, أَعْمَاهُمُ اللَّهُ عَنِّي. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blinded them from actually seeing me. I mean, they were right there, right on top of me. They could have taken me. Allah, who protected the Messenger ﷺ in the cave of the Hijrah, protected Marthad radiallahu ta'ala anhu. So Marthad said they left. Alhamdulillah. Then he said what? He said, so I went back into Mecca and I rescued the prisoner that the Prophet ﷺ sent me to rescue, because I didn't want to go back to the Prophet ﷺ empty-handed. This is taqwa in and of itself. Could have come back to the Prophet ﷺ and say, I got caught. Things got messy. He said, I went back. And he said, and I got the prisoner. And he said, and this prisoner happened to be a particularly heavy prisoner. So he exhausted me. I carried him out of Mecca, and people already knew that I was somewhere around. So there's a high alert for me. And I carried him, and I got to Idkhir. And he said, and I unshackled him, and I put him on my camel, and we made our way back to Medina.